What's going on, Colts Nation? I appreciate you joining me for another video where today we're going to talk more about free agency. This one going to be on the defensive side. As we start on that defensive side, we know we have to fix a lot of things on that defensive side of the ball. I think that's where, at least for me, where we're going to spend a lot of the money in free agency. I think there's going to be a lot of draft picks. I think offense, for the most part, we're pretty well set up, but we did talk about, backup quarterback, backup running back, and also talked about revamping a tight end room, bringing in a veteran tight end. If you haven't seen those videos and when this one's done, make sure you go check those out. But going forward, talking about the defense, we're going to talk about defensive ends, then we're going to talk about linebackers, and we're going to talk about safeties. If you guys didn't vote on those polls, go vote on those, the linebacker and the safety polls, before we have those videos. But for this one, we are actually talking about the most active poll that we put out, the defensive ends, where there was 326 votes. Colts Nation standing up on this one now, 200 something votes on the other one. This one going over 300. I appreciate everybody that participated in the polls and was able to see those. But here again, we're talking about edge rushers, and this is an interesting one that is it's complicated situation because we have Kwity Paye on his 5th-year option. You have Latu. We're in a situation where, are you really bringing anybody in this year that is actually going to try to be long term? Because you might have massive roster flip next year, along with front office and coaching staff. Like, if things don't go well in 2025, everything could change for the Colts. So it's difficult to see exactly what we're going to do in terms of all of the free agents that we've talked about and all the free agents we're going to talk about. Who are we going to bring in on these multi-year deals? Who's going to want to sign multi-year deals? Because these if we know our situation as fans, the players understand the situation. Now, the players also have an obligation to themselves and to their family. They get offered so much money, they're probably going to take the contract. But for the purposes of this conversation, I felt like I put together a pretty good list of people. And again, the money we have in free agency, I think, is going to be spent largely on the defensive side of the ball. So going through the options of who we have Chase Young, who was most recently with the Saints, Dayo Dangbo, who of course has spent his career with the Colts and has had ups and downs, obviously the injuries to begin his career, but somebody who you feel like if Dayo plays a little more, he gets more production. He's somebody who, I believe in 2023, he led the team in pressure rate. Not sure where he stood in 2024. I know Latu actually led the team in pressure rate. He only played 51% of the snaps, though. So it's kind of the same situation as Dayo. That's why Gus Bradley, you got to go. So we'll see exactly what happens there. Dayo, I wouldn't be mad if we brought Dayo in, but I also see a situation where Dayo and what's happened in his career, from being injured, coming in, getting playing time, and being effective, and really the most effective pass rusher we had in the 2023 season, and still didn't play enough. I could see where he's going to try to go somewhere where he can make an impact, sign a 1-year deal where he's actually going to be able to play, most of the snaps on defense. Seems like his situation right there. Hassan Reddick is an option that we talked about as I was looking through, and trying to figure out. There are plenty of edge rushers, that are going to be free agents, but I was trying to figure out who could we manage to bring in that would be like worth it, somebody that can be actually productive. There are a lot of Dayo Dangbos out there, a lot of Chase Youngs, a lot of anywhere between 6 and 9 sacks in a season type guys, depending on how much they play. Plenty of those guys out there, but I'm looking for people that are going to get double-digit sack production. You have Latu on one side, then you get somebody else, one of these veteran guys, bring them in, and have them be on the opposite side of Latu. Then you have Kwity Paye all of a sudden is a depth piece. And I think with him on his 5th-year option, he's going to be making $13 million a year. So we could do nothing at that defensive end spot and just roll with Latu and Kwity. Not really exactly what I would like. I'd like us to get another attacker on the other side. You think about how Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard have been in that Lou Anarumo system, right? Just being able to attack. And I think obviously Kwity Paye was playing in that Leo spot in that Gus Bradley defense. And so that probably had an effect on his pass rushing, right? Because he had to be involved in the run game and was a big part of being involved in the run game, Kwity Paye. So, maybe with his role changing, maybe the output that he has, maybe that will change. So we'll see. Maybe that's a possibility. But just from what we've seen with Kwity over time, like inconsistencies as a pass rusher. So all in all, I feel like you make Kwity a depth piece. That would be the ideal situation. That's why this conversation comes up. And I think a lot of people are thinking the same thing. And a lot of people, when you think about the free agents we talked about, Chase Young, Dayo Odeyingbo, Haason Reddick, then you look at the last option here was actually trade for Trey Hendrickson. There were so many people. I actually think I had a fourth option, but so many people loved the idea of trading for Trey Hendrickson. And people were talking about, hey, screw all these options. Hey, let's just trade and go get Hendrickson. He's already been in Lou Anarumo's system. We know he can produce. Led the NFL in sacks this past season, I believe, 2 seasons in a row at 17 sacks, if I'm not mistaken. So Trey Hendrickson has been putting in that work. Out of the 326 votes, 53% of Colts Nation that voted on this poll want Trey Hendrickson. Go trade for Trey Hendrickson instead of signing Dayo Odeyingbo, who got 20% of the vote, right? Colts fans still being loyal, like, hey, just bring our guy back. And I'm with, if we brought Dayo back, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Of course, we want to bring in different guys, but at the end of the day, Dayo, again, if he plays more, I think he can be more effective, and it'd be interesting to see just how much he plays in the Lou Anarumo defense. It'd be interesting to see how he's able to produce as an attacking defensive end, like just come in and attack. So that'd be interesting. And then Chase Young taking 18% of the vote, which I was honestly surprised about. I thought Dayo would take a bigger chunk of that, but Dayo at 20, Chase at 18, and I wouldn't be mad at that either. Somebody that we talked about during the 2023 season of, hey, maybe we trade for this guy. Seemed like he wasn't being valued where he was, so I thought maybe we bring him in. That obviously doesn't end up happening, but nonetheless, Chase Young, just somebody, he's like Kwity, right? It's like Kwity. Just somebody who not consistent enough. Now, obviously, Chase Young has dealt with injuries throughout his career, so availability is obviously an issue, and he was on the list because he's somebody who can be a high-value edge rusher, and with his injury history, with his inconsistencies, he'd be a little cheaper. So, that would be a good option. I wouldn't be mad at that. We'd probably get him for a good price. Dayo, who knows what Dayo's price is going to be, because he hasn't played enough. It's probably going to be a 1-year deal where he can try to, play more, get more production, then go get a bigger contract next year is what I assume that situation is going to be. And of course, Haason Reddick sitting here 9% of the vote. If you hadn't done the math already, that is 9% of the vote going to Haason Reddick. Colton, I don't even blame you, honestly. Of all the options that we talked about, Haason Reddick, the least, the one that I want the least when it comes down to it. Obviously because of what happened with the Jets, what his number is going to be, and how much he's going to want to make. Like, screw it, man. Like, screw the picks. Go get Trey Hendrickson. I'm completely on board with that. Colts Nation, you guys, you know what you're talking about on this one. I think when you talk about allocating the money that we have in free agency, I think going and getting a guy like Trey Hendrickson would be massive for this defense. Putting him and Latu on the field together, and then what we're talking about later on in the defense, I think would be massive. Again, for me, a lot of my free agent money being spent on the defense, right? Because if you remember, as we went through the offense, if you didn't see those videos yet, my picks were Marcus Mariota as a backup quarterback instead of Justin Fields. Now, I did pick Kareem Hunt as my option, my veteran option to bring in as a backup running back. You guys actually chose the draft, which would probably be less money. And then, of course, I chose Zach Ertz, which would be less money than Mike Gesicki at tight end in terms of veteran tight end to bring in. So I'm trying to spend less money on the offensive side. On the defensive side, don't save, man. We gotta be able to build that defense up. That's been the Achilles heel for this team is that defense. Obviously, Gus Bradley being a big part of that and what he brings to the table. I think a lot of things will change under Lou Anarumo, and I think we still have a lot of dogs on defense. I've maintained that position throughout, no matter how bad they do. Like, we have good players. That's why I obviously Gus Bradley was a problem, because we have a lot of players who can make a lot of plays. And I just think the messaging on defense wasn't getting through, and we were able to finally get that change. So coming in this year, Lou Anarumo, go ahead, bring somebody from his defense. Also, hey, Jermaine Pratt, I believe, is either available for trade or going to be a free agent. I think at the time of making the linebacker video, he wasn't available. So if we bring in Jermaine Pratt too, I'd be cool with that, man. Add him to that linebacker room. If we could bring in Jermaine Pratt and still find a way to bring in a guy like Isaiah Simmons, and then you have Jalen Carley's there as well, like the depth. And then there's so much to talk about with this defense. And again, we're going to talk about the linebackers next. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you have notifications on if you don't already. Make sure you hit that like button if you're enjoying the content. Of course, I appreciate you stopping by for another video. As always, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and go Colts.